Before we do approval of the agenda, I'm going to take the opportunity here. I think we're going to do a minute of silence there for Honorable John Horgan, who passed away today. All right, take approval of the agenda, please. Councilor Norbury.
That all items in the November 12th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Okay, just so everybody's aware, Councilor Julich is joined by Zoom. In case I don't see her, if somebody can just mention that. Adoption of minutes for October 15th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation, please. Councilor Noxana.
That the October 15th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councilor Clickash. Any errors or omissions from council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes, council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. Under reports, elected officials Code of Conduct, Policy EO-3. Report dated November 12th, 2024 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding elected officials Code of Conduct, Policy EO-3. Recommendation, please. Councilor Noxana.
That we receive this for discussion.
Seconder, Councilor Hoffman. All in favor? Carried. Councilor Noxana.
Thank you. Reading through the policy, it covers a lot of different things about the expectations of us and the code of conduct we should be following. But I wonder if there is any thought to a dress code or anything like that that we would like to include in this policy. We are representing the entire district, so I think in council business, we should perhaps have a certain level of respect when we're out in the public on council business.
Okay, thank you for that. Comments from council? Councilor Hoffman?
I can't tell you how against that I would be. We were representing everybody, whatever they're comfortable in and however everyone do it. I think our conduct is how we represent ourselves, and dressing appropriately in public is just sort of a general thing. If we go too far, there's other consequences. So I would not want to formalize a dress code in council or outside for councillors.
Okay. Councilor Julich?
My opinion would be, well, I understand where Councillor Noxana is going with this. It's something that I see a lot of organizations going away from, just based on the level of maybe what one can afford to dress like. Then we might have to start getting more specific. I think that it's something that we can discuss as a council if there's an expectation before going to a specific meeting, if we thought that there was going to be, that we might want to be more business formal rather than business casual. But yeah, I think that we have to be careful on this one, just for those reasons. I think that there's lots of socioeconomic reasons why we may or may not be able to dress in a certain way. So I would be against adding that to a code of conduct.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Noxana, anything follow up? Any other comments?
Sure. I think the direction I would be more comfortable, not a formal dress code, but more just adding a line that we are representing the district and that we should be doing so in a professional manner. I don't think any of us are very formal people. We're not looking for business suits for every council event, but perhaps some level of of attire and presentation should be required.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Krakowka. I'd be happy to wear suits every day. You know, if you know, you got to get some mileage out of these things when you buy them when you first join council. And, you know, I think there absolutely should be something here for the mayor, that he has to wear a suit and tie every meeting. But in all seriousness, I can appreciate that we are representatives of the community, but we all have different opinions on what that would look like, right? You know, for myself, you know, I don't want to say, you know, it isn't about myself, but, you know, when I go to events, you know, I wear a suit, tie, pocket square, everything, right? Like I go all the way up because that's the way I feel comfortable, but not everyone else feels comfortable in that level. And I think, yeah, as representatives of the community, it's very common for people in our community to, you know, go t-shirts and jeans to everything, and that's fine with me. You know, I don't have an issue with how they do that in the public as well as ourselves. So, yeah, that's my comments. Thanks.
Councilor Giselle?
Yeah, I think thank you, Mayor. I think as long as we're not showing up in torn jeans and ripped T-shirts, I think we're okay as long as we're dressing appropriately.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, not to put you on the spot, and I believe there is a policy somewhere, and I'm trying to remember the policy. It just talks about, I won't say dress attire, but I just think it talks about more or less the professionalism and such. And it's not the code of conduct, but it's another policy within the DTR. Are you aware of one?
My brain is quickly trying to cycle
Yeah.
through all of the policies, and I can't, off the top of my head, think which one that would be.
Okay. No, and mine was doing the same thing. That's why I thought I'd ask a question, because I thought I'd seen something. And I'll maybe just circle back to it, but I mean, it wasn't about a certain dress code or anything like that. But I think it did talk just in regards to being, you know, your professional attire and neat and tidy and something. I remember seeing something. It might not even be from here, but it might be worth looking into that. But I don't believe it was in the code of conduct. Okay, any other questions from council in regards to the code of conduct policy? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of things, but I'll start with this one because I thought it was the one that I was most wondering about. Under number 16, last sentence, a violation of this code of conduct shall not be considered a basis for challenging the validity of a council or committee decision. This is page 5 of 7 of the policy. There's only 2 lines on that page. Why can we not make that a violation a consideration and as a basis for challenging the validity of a decision? I'm not sure if that's just as a legal requirement, or is this what we're choosing? As I think that's exactly the basis that I would want to challenge a decision if somebody is in violation of the code, getting a personal benefit or has ulterior motives, that I would want to challenge, especially if it's ended up being a 4-3 decision or something like that.
Ms. Scott?
That would be something that I'd have to do some more research on.
Okay, appreciate that. Yeah, and I mean, and I understand, Councillor Hoffman, where you come to, it's like the last bullet, but there's more meat in the whole part of compliance and enforcement. So I understand we're picking one piece of it, but I think give staff an opportunity to read through that whole thing and just make sure that it's what it's supposed to be.
And I don't have any issue with that answer at this point in time, but that's just, we've had things like this, and especially when we're doing the early training, come up that decisions are final. But I think if a decision is influenced by something other than everything else in this document, that maybe we should revisit as a point of policy to make sure. I also understand that might mean there's a whole lot of things and decisions that were made that we may come back and have to question. But I think that's just part of transparency and good governance, is that if a decision was tainted, you know, you've gone through the process, you've said that there's a problem here, the decisions that were decided based on that, I think should be reviewed. So I'll just leave it at that. I know there's there's more processes of review for this code of conduct, and I'm not forgetting that one. So as I said, I'm fine with that for now. I do have another one, but I'm willing to wait my turn.
Oh, go ahead.
On number 11, use of public resources. I'll just read it out loud. Members shall not use public resources not available to the public in general, such as staff time, equipment, supplies, or facilities for private gain or personal purposes. The part that I was wondering is how are we defining personal purposes? Because I was thinking if, I know Mayor has a phone now, we're talking about adding phones. I know there's laptops issued. If somebody's using it for their private email or takes a personal call, it just seems technically under personal purposes. And I'm hoping that such frivolous things like that are not actually considered a violation of this code.
Ms. Scott?
That would not have been the intention of this policy. There is no definition, but it would be more like you can't have Public Works come to your house to clear the snow off your roof. That would be a personal purpose, as opposed to, receiving the occasional personal phone call on a district cell.
Okay. I guess what I'm going to ask is, can we, it doesn't even have to be within this point, but can we define that somewhere within the code of conduct of what does not, if that's easier, violate the idea of personal purpose? I may be wrong, I'm a little out of date on this one, but I know for a long time corporations were moving away from trying to separate business use and personal use for personal devices. It was a little unyieldy as a policy to start to try to move that. And just as a general statement, I don't care if people use devices for personal purposes, as long as they're not using it for personal advantage, like a private gain. The big one for me was the staff time and the equipment. Supplies, facilities, yes, I'm having trouble, like if somebody takes a pen home, I don't care. If they steal bricks of paper, I do care. But I think there just needs to be clarification on what personal purposes means, or what the limits of a violation looks like on that. But that's the two main things I had, thank you.
Councillor Hoffman, my opinion would be if you're talking about when it comes to personal use, like cell phones, somebody's taking a personal call on their district cell phone or something, put a motion forward so staff will add that into the policy.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, don't be sorry. If you need a few minutes, I can go to the next councillor, and if you want to write it up, or if you just want to wing it.
You know what, let me write it up, because I don't want to bulk up number 11 here. I just want to make sure that people are covered for the basic uses of devices. So let me work on that, and before we're done here, I'll have something.
Okay. Councillor Julik?
Yeah, I would say in response to Councillor Hoffman's thoughts, I don't think for the violation of this code shall not be considered a basis for challenging validity of a committee decision or of a councillor committee decision. I think that those things have to be taken into account during the debate. I think that we already have mechanisms in place for that. If something goes awry, the mayor can bring that back. Just with his rights and responsibilities, he can correct me if I'm wrong. And so I think that leaving it as simple as that is important. I think that when it comes to my own personal code of conduct, for example, if I am in conflict of interest, that's my decision to make. That's not council's. And everybody can have an opinion, but I'm the only one who can actually can declare that conflict. So I think that can be left as is. And so far as number 11, use of public resources, I don't think we should be using our computer and phone given to us from the district for personal use. It's one thing if you're just doing a quick phone call because that's the only phone you have handy, but I don't think that on my District of Tumbler Ridge computer that I should be doing personal business. For a multitude of reasons, I have my own personal reasons for that, but I think that it's good to stay away from that. I would also want to make sure that we were in alignment with anything that staff had to adhere to. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, 100%. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I think for referring to number 16, the shall not, when it's in something like this, it's defining it in advance. It's not giving us the flexibility to say this was an extreme violation, so we will do this or we will do that. So if we're going to define it in advance as shall not, that's a concern of mine. Because I'm not worried about this council really, but who knows what the future looks like with somebody actively looking to use the council as a basis for a financial benefit, whether that's a business opportunity or whatever it ends up being. And that's why I don't want to see shall not here. If it's just left blank, or if we even define it as process in defining a violation, the decision is made by council on whether or not we'll review decisions. Whatever it is that we decide, I just don't like this blanket stoppage of a previous decision, even tainted, stands. In the end, can we bring it back forward after this happens and try to deal with it that way? We could, but I think that as part of transparency, letting things stand, I just don't like it as a governing policy. So that's where I'm coming from that. I'm not married to not, I'm not married to shall. Being at the end, the final decision, that's where I'm coming from that. And to your other statement, I don't think I would be using my computer for personal business either. However, that doesn't mean I think that we should be spending the time to monitoring somebody that makes that decision. We all know that our computers can be taken back. Our cell phones, if we have them issued, can be taken back. There's a risk in doing that. I don't think it's worth monitoring, spending the time, and trying to keep each individual's transactions on these devices monitored. We may have people that can't afford a computer at some point that will be using their district computer as a benefit for being on council for other purposes that I can't even think of right now, for access, research, whatever. And I'm making the statement, I don't care personally if somebody does that, whether I would do it or not. It is a physical device, it has usage, it doesn't cost the district any more for somebody to use it for these other purposes. They're charging it at their own home, however much they're using it. So, and to my mind, why not get the value of using the device if that's what they want to do? Am I putting my banking information on our computer? No, definitely not. Not planning on doing that. Can't imagine the circumstance where I would, but that doesn't mean somebody else may not want to do it for that. So that's why I just want to make that a very clear, where's the line drawn and what is acceptable. And the last thing I want is start nitpicking on violations over something as trivial as an email or a phone call, or the kids searched on their phone when they were on vacation. Like just flat out saying, your private business is fine, don't violate the rest of the code, and leave it at that, I think is the best value for the town as a policy decision. Most of us probably will follow your lead. We have our personal computers for that. Some people on the phone, I think that might be different. If you get a district phone, are you going to keep your personal phone? Maybe, maybe not. Don't know. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. But that's just it. I think as a policy thing, I don't want staff time monitoring usage for on this level. So I'll stop now. Thank you.
Okay. I got myself and then Councilor Norbury. Yeah, so to me, when it comes to district-owned things, whether it's cell phone or laptop, I do not use that for personal whatsoever. And I understand what Councilor Hoffman said when he talked about himself as well. But I don't understand, like when we're talking about 11 and stuff, I honestly, if somebody can point it out, I mean, if we're talking about that this is equipment, would be different. I believe my understanding of this, and I'll go to Ms. Scott, but my understanding of that, when we're talking equipment, that's like, you know, stuff, whether that's from Public Works or such that comes to your house to clear your snow. You know, supplies or facilities, I mean, I don't think we're talking paper or pens, like, you know, one sheet of paper when you're writing a note. But I think when we're talking supplies, we're talking quantity, and then facilities, obviously, and then the private gain or personal purposes, that's for the whole thing underneath it. I don't think there's anything here that talks in regards to our laptops or cell phones. But to me, I believe staff have the same policy that district-owned devices are for district business and not their personal, but I'll ask Ms. Scott that.
There is a policy for staff that we sign off on in regards to district devices. And the intention of this policy, when it talks about equipment and supplies, you're right. I mean, it talks about, I think the intention was that it should mean bigger pieces of equipment or large quantities of supplies. But could we clean up the language to make that clear so it's not open to interpretation? Probably we could.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Krakowka. You know, on the discussion of like personal devices, like unless you're, mining cryptocurrency, everyday usage of whatever device you have won't affect the longevity of your device more so than the age of the device and the physical capability within it, right? So you could probably use, a cell phone every day, all day, and, the only reason why it would become unusable is because it's just obsolescence, right? So realistically, I mean, I don't think we need to define it too much. I think we're kind of making a mountain out of a molehill, to be honest. Like, for the most part, it's it's given to us by the district, we use it for district business. If there's an issue, like, if somebody is, getting viruses on their computer somehow, well, maybe we need to, to take have a discussion with that individual and define that at that point. But realistically, I don't see that. I think it's a misnomer. I don't think it's that big of an issue. But realistically, we do need to say, like, yeah, we can't be getting Public Works to come do our Cultus Act before someone else's, right? Like, I think that's the intention, and that's what I'd be fine with leaving it there if we wanted to find it that way. We're not going to get personal gain. We're not going to, get allowances for fences or anything like that. So, yeah, that's just where I'm at. Thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Gilek.
I think for me, I just would like to be mindful again that if we have an expectation of staff, and I understand that we're arm's length in such a way. I think though, part of our job is to also be an example. And so even if it's not in our code of conduct, maybe we do have to have something that would be similar to what staff signs, recognizing what is acceptable and not acceptable on public devices or devices from the DTR. What if we ended up with some kind of big expensive phone bill because a counselor decided to go crazy or wasn't responsible and a child went a little nuts or something? Like, I just think that we need to be mindful of that part. That's the only part of the public. The other part I get, like, we just can't be getting stuff the rest of the community can't get, and essentially having a phone given to us by the district and a computer is also something the public doesn't get.
Thank you. Councillor Hoffman, are you prepared with your motion?
Trying to look at different ways to separate it or not, but okay, let's just go with where I'm at. Move that the term, or actually no, let's do that differently. I move that point 11 of the proposed code of conduct specify that say personal or items that could be considered personal devices are not subject to this clause. So
Take a seconder.
oh, that was fast.
Sorry, Councillor Hoffman.
You don't have to be sorry.
Okay. Any other discussion in regards to the code of conduct? Ms. Scott, I know you've also reviewed this. We've had a discussion about it. Do you see anything that needs to be changed or added within the code of conduct for council?
No.
Thank you. Okay, BC Council of Forest Industries, correspondence dated October 28, 2024. From Linda Coady, President and CEO, 2025 COFI Convention. Obviously, I said that wrong. Recommendation. I'll move that council receives COFI correspondence for discussion. Take a seconder. Councillor Noxana. All in favor? Carried. This was missed at our regular meeting of council. I appreciate staff. I meant to bring it forward, so I appreciate staff circling back and make sure it was added here, so thank you very much. I will be attending this. I'm not sure if anybody else from council, community forest appointment, plans on attending. Okay. Anybody else from council want to attend COFI? Okay, if we can just move that forward to the regular meeting for approval of what's not covered under the COFI's coverage, because they're covering registration and one-night hotel. So I'm not sure if there's anything else that's needed, but if there is, if we can bring it to the next regular meeting of council, please. Do you need a motion? Do you want a motion? Okay, 6.3, this was something also I tried to bring forward, and I meant to at our last regular council meeting and forgot. Letters to Mike Bernier and Larry Neufeld. Item brought forward by Mayor Krakowka for council consideration. Councillor Noxena.
Recommendation that council sends a letter to Mike Bernier to thank him for his support to Tumbler Ridge and the Peace River Regional District during his time as MLA, and a letter to Larry Neufeld to congratulate him, expressing that this council looks forward to working with him in Tumbler Ridge and the Peace River region issues.
Seconder. Councillor Norbury, discussion. If we may just add to the letter coming from the municipality that we just advise Larry Neufeld that we always CC our MLA on any letters going to the provincial government, just so he's aware that we stay in contact that way. So I'll do that as an amendment. I'll take a seconder on the amendment. Councillor Noxena. Discussion on the amendment. Call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Amendment carries. Any discussion on the amended motion? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Animal Responsibility Bylaw. At the November 4th, 2024 regular council meeting, the council requested to have the Animal Responsibility Bylaw brought at the meeting, at this meeting for discussion. Recommendation. Councillor Norbury.
That the Animal Responsibility Bylaw be brought up for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Dussault. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Krakowka. You know, reading through the bylaw, you know, I think it's a pretty good bylaw, right? Like it does meet a lot of the things that we're looking for, right? Like it has the definitions of all the dogs. You know, for me, it's I think we're finding out that the bylaw needs to go a little farther, and what happens after, you know, a dangerous dog has been dangerous. It's been shown that it's, you know, attacking people, attacking animals, attacking people. So, you know, for myself, I'd like to see some sort of outline in this on what happens after, you know, all of our current precautions fails, right? Like, there's got to be a point in time when fines are just not enough, right? Like, for me, you know, I use the example of what happened with, you know, that animal attack, that dog attacked the little dog and the person. And, you know, they got a couple $1,000. They got fined, right? Good. But what happens after that, right? Like, personally, I'd like to see something more happen. Do we contact the SPCA to come take that dangerous animal? Because now they're a danger to the community, right? Is it something as simple as we give somebody a pamphlet saying these are your rights as a victim of a dog attack? Because the possession of an animal, that's something that the SPCA does when dogs attack other dogs or people. And then the victim of that attack or the SPCA can petition the court to have that animal put down. There's got to be a point in time when there's harsher sentences for dangerous dogs because people need to feel safe in our community. They should worry about bears, not about dogs. So that's the first thing that I'd have to say. Thanks.
Ms. Scott, do you know the process in regards to involving the SPCA when we have a dangerous dog attack? And obviously, staff has done everything they can do. They've, you know, obviously made sure that they had the dangerous dog sign, given them the filled out paperwork that it has to be muzzled when it's outside their premises, controlled by a person that can control it in regards to the leashing. Like, I know it doesn't state anywhere in here after a certain point that the district then contacts SPCA. I mean, it seems like we take this on internally through bylaw, but are you aware of how that process could work?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the district could also petition the courts to have a dangerous dog put down as well. But I am definitely not an expert in this subject, and I believe that Director Curry could probably answer your question better, so I will ask him if he can provide additional information for you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, good evening. So in answer to the Mayor's question, we are able to petition the court to request that the dangerous dog be put down through a matter of judicial procedure. In response to your first part of the question involving the SPCA, we fall into kind of a bit of a gray area with the SPCA. We are not under the South Piece or the North Piece. We actually fall into what would be kind of like a rural area, provincial section. So we provide input to the provincial special constable for the SPCA. There's one that does pretty much the entire north. And then we get compliance through them on a variety of different things. It could be for dangerous dogs, it could be for cats at large. That's really our avenue. The South Piece SPCA relies for the Dawson Creek area, the North Piece is for the Fort St. John area. We don't deal directly with those organizations unless we are asking them to take any animal that we have in our holding facility, and we're looking to try and not necessarily rehome it, but relocate it.
Okay. Follow-up, Councilor Norbury?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that, Chief Curry. You know, it's interesting here that we don't have a local SPCA, or even we can't access Dawson Creek's SPCA. We have to access this constable. Where is this constable? Do we know where that is? Is it Fort St. John? Is it Prince George? Like, it's not in, yeah, my thoughts.
Ms. Scott?
Again, I don't know the answer to that, so I will ask Director Curry to provide an answer. Thank you.
Ms. Scott, to the council, under my understanding, they're in Prince George is where the special constable is. Now, that's not to say that we don't have access to information and a working relationship with the South Piece SPCA, but not at the level of where we're talking about having them come to Tumbler Ridge and pick up an animal or deem it dangerous or do anything like that. That falls into the special constable.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up? Okay, thank you. Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. I have to agree with Councilor Norby. When I reread what was produced, it's actually pretty good. The other things that he's bringing up, I'm a little worried about liability. Like, do we have a cost if we are petitioning? Do we have liability if we do go through and have a dog destroyed, that the owner can, does the owner have any recourse against us? That's what I also worry about, of even giving a pamphlet. Are we sending people down a path that we're opening ourselves up to liability for the consequences of that? That said, I don't like the idea that we have dangerous dogs without muzzles running around town. So I'm open to suggestions. I'm just, we didn't bring it up yet. I really liked Councillor Noxana's liability insurance for somebody that has a designated dangerous dog, or any other of the other designations as well, that, as a possibility. I don't know the legal standing of that, if we are able to do that. But let's just go with the first one. Do we have a price on what it would cost if we were to pursue the destruction of an animal that we have seized?
Ms. Scott?
That I don't know. So again, I'll ask Director Curry if he has any kind of estimated cost for that.
Ms. Scott, through the council, so I'm not aware of any actual dollar value, but I can say that if we were to deem a dangerous dog and we were to the point of considering that this dangerous dog be euthanized, the dog would be seized by the district and in our possession. We would not allow this dog to be a public menace or a danger to the public. We would have this dog seized in our possession before we went through the court. Now, that could, in theory, provide a lot of overtime, specifically for the care of the animal after hours. So we'd be looking at that cost that would be associated, but the liability to that point, we would have the dog in our possession.
Okay.
Follow-up, Councillor Hoffman?
What about like court costs or any legal costs, if you have any idea?
Ms. Scott?
I don't, and to my knowledge, we haven't gone this route, so I really don't know what those costs would be.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hoffman?
I'm good.
Councillor Julik?
Yeah, so I have one thing specific. Number 27 under section 8 says, if the district identifies a dog as being a dangerous dog, the district may provide. I would like to see that change to must provide. The owner with written notice that the dog has been designated a dangerous dog. And then I think that there needs to be some steps in there that talk about when they give that notice, that owner then signs something that says that they've been notified, they understand, And then with the pamphlet, for me, the pamphlet would need to be something specific that we would have to keep on top of. I think what I took away from this, this incident is that we didn't have enough steps to follow. We didn't have the steps that, okay, you have a dangerous dog, and what is our expectation of council to staff, like that they need to be checked up on this many times, this frequently. What happens if the dog, I see that they talk that it must be firmly held and have a muzzle and all of that stuff. What happens if it doesn't? So to me, it's kind of like one of those charts. Did you do this? Yes. Did you do this? No. And then you go back. Like it's something like that. That's what I would like to see specifically to the dangerous dogs. I think that we need to be cognizant as we bring this bylaw forward, that we also have to think about the nuisance animals, the other nuisance animals we might have in town, fully recognizing that my husky is not at home as often as he should be. So I would accept the fines. Mostly I'm thinking there could be cats that are nuisance cats and stuff like that. Now, I was paying more attention to dangerous dogs, but so I apologize for not being prepared in that regard. But I think where the meat is in this dangerous dogs is the expectation of what we expect to be done by our bylaw when a dog is deemed dangerous, so that we're on top of it and that the owners are reminded regularly, this is what's going to happen if you don't take care of your dog.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think there's a lot of, when you mentioned about the wording may, there's lots of spots within the bylaw that it states may, and I think we need to look at these mays, because mays are may. Ms. Scott, can we just get an overview of what happened? So we understand that we have one that was assessed by the district or by bylaw, has been appointed as a dangerous dog. It has a different tag, has to be muzzled, has to be, what happens when it's not? What happens when the tag is not renewed? Do we ever go back and say, hey, we know it, this address, we had a dangerous dog, tag hasn't been renewed by a certain date? We do follow up? Is there anything like that from the staff side?
I am not familiar with bylaws specific procedures, so again, I will refer that to Director Curry.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, so when, this is relatively a newer process for us, and we're trying to navigate this as we're kind of moving through. So in March of this year, when we did the amendment, we actually didn't have a section in our application for a dog being dangerous, nuisance, or a high risk. That wasn't on the application. So we may have had individuals that were coming in and going, yep, I have a dog, and it was missed because licenses are bought here at Town Hall. We have the records over at the Fire Hall with Protective Services. So we've changed our forms. We've made some administrative processes to try and capture a lot of these. Is there still work to be done? Absolutely, we recognize that. So now we are going to be getting to the point of actually sending out reminders for every animal, whether that's dog or cat, nuisance, high risk, or dangerous. This is when your license is to expire. Just like you had a business license, now we have the information that we will have that information on file so that we can send out those notifications. What you're talking about when it is not done, for a license issue, we will have that information now on file. We can actually go back and then issue tickets for lack of license. If you haven't got it, we give a grace period for January to January 31st. That's in the Animal Responsibility Bylaw. At that time, then we can go back and say, hey, you haven't done this. If for every day that your dog is not licensed, here's your fine. For a dangerous dog, you're talking $300, $500, whatever it so may be in the MTI bylaw. So we're going back to that. Where we stop short is the expectation you were talking about was we cannot be everywhere all at once. We cannot see this dog every time that it leaves its property. We rely on neighbors, we rely on the public to give us information about those dogs, which is why we have signage as a requirement for those animals. If that animal leaves, we are aware of it. The flip side to that is now in this amendment, we also have the requirement for an additional tag to be put onto high risk and dangerous dogs. This is a yellow tag. It's larger than the other one. It's about 3 inches in diameter. That goes on to high risk and dangerous dogs, so that from a distance you are able to tell if that animal meets those criteria. If they are and they're not muzzled, we want to hear from the public on those things. We want to know when that actually occurs so that we can make those follow-ups with those owners to ensure that those compliance are met.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, if I may follow up with you there, and I think staff won't be able to speak to this, maybe be able to give their opinion to this. I would think it's not just within our own bylaw officer doing their work, that they can't be everywhere at every time. Rely on the public to, you know, whether it's the dangerous dogs, the nuisance dogs, whatever, we look for those complaints. Would that not be fair to say the same thing would be with the SPCA? They're not everywhere at the same time, and they probably rely on residents of those communities to call in as well?
Yes?
Thanks. Follow up, Councillor Julik. Okay. Oops. Councillor Clickdash.
Yes, Your Worship. Isn't can't the RCMP get involved in this? I mean, they get involved with, somebody hits a moose, breaks its leg, they go out and shoot it. And you know, it's not much different than some dog running around biting people. If the dog's biting you and he's hanging onto your leg and you're dialing, you know, to get a hold of Mr. Curry, you know, it sounds to me like it's not an instant type of thing that's gonna happen, and it should be. You know, there should be something that we can do that'll get somebody out there within an hour or whatever, and that thing's gone. Not this fooling around. You know, that dog's gonna get out there, he's gonna get out and bite somebody else. So I think we gotta put some meat in this thing, so that these dogs aren't around. Because if it gets a hold of a kid, who's gonna wind up responsible? Maybe the district? Maybe they get sued or what? Because they didn't follow through and make sure that these animals weren't here. That's it.
Thank you. So I'll just go to Ms. Scott about in regards to RCMP. I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf, but I know the RCMP are usually fairly involved, not just with our bylaw, but with our protective services quite often. But if we can just get clarification there from staff, Ms. Scott, in regards to RCMP assisting.
Yeah, and so I am not aware if and when the RCMP would be involved in a animal incident. So again, I will ask Director Coady to provide that information.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, Mayor and Council. To Councillor Clickdash's remarks, the RCMP are, especially after hours, involved heavily in any type of a dangerous dog occurrence or dog attack. Quite often, because bylaw only operates during normal business hours from Monday to Friday from 8 to 4:30 generally, the RCMP do take on a lot of the after hours calls for these things. And quite often, when they do attend these, they immediately will call me and say, hey, we have this situation with this dog, and then I will authorize the overtime for the bylaw officer to actually go out and attend and investigate with them. If there's an imminent public threat, like we're talking about the dog that is biting and is causing massive damage or is actively injuring someone, the RCMP can take matters into their own hands. They can follow whatever procedures that they would have in place to deal with that situation and mitigate the emergency. That is protection of public safety. I'm not going to speak for them on what those procedures are, and I wouldn't care to. Their world is muchly different than mine, but they can respond, and if there is an imminent public danger, they do in a timely manner. Again, understanding that they are sometimes short-staffed. They may be dealing with other files. They may not be able to attend any faster that we could based on whatever they have as a workload.
Thank you for that. Follow-up, Councillor Clickdash?
Yeah. I just feel that that we don't have the teeth in here that it's required, you know, to fix this biting situation. I mean, if a person's got a dog like that, they shouldn't even be allowed to have a dog like that. You know, it doesn't make any sense to have a guard dog or a biting dog in a town situation. You have them out in the farm, but not in the town situation. So I think we really got to look into this and see what what we can do, because if one of your kids gets hurt or something like that, you know, it's gonna be a serious thing. So I think we have to put our mind to it and make sure this is right.
Yep.
Thanks.
Nope, thank you. I got Councilor Noxana, then myself.
Thank you. I would like to see more mitigation. Once the dangerous dog gets designated, what can we do to mitigate risk to the public? And I understand Councillor Clickash wanting no dangerous dogs, but I think that there's a line where we can't apprehend every animal that could have this designation. But how do we mitigate in other areas? So we discussed, and I discussed a bit with Ms. Scott about insurance policies, mandatory, paid for by owners of people with dangerous dogs. I'm not sure if this is even things that are possible or where you would get these, what they would cost, but if these are mandatory, it might deter people if they have a financial burden from wanting to keep that animal. In the future, they may have to surrender it, and it would be another avenue of removing these animals from our community. Or having some sort of assurance to the public that if a situation like just happened a few weeks ago happened, the owners of the injured party have some sort of recourse to pay extensive vet bills from what I've heard. Other things like monitoring the new registrations was on my list. It sounds like that's already underway, which is great. Perhaps periodic inspections by a designated person by the district. So just checking in, so people aren't getting complacent with their dangerous animal, not specifically dog. It could be a chicken or a cat, or I think there was a list of them at the last meeting.
Okay, just hang on one second. Ms. Scott, can we just get clarity from staff if we do have within admin, if they're already doing these check-ins and it's not within the policy?
Sure, I will ask Director Curry to provide that information.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, currently, we are doing inspections, but not at a frequent interval. This is usually at the beginning, when we ensure that there is a compliance, and then potentially maybe once a year, but it's definitely not at a frequent scheduled interval.
Okay, thank you.
My thought with the inspections is one, it's very front of mind then. If you've just seen the dog or staff has just seen the dog, it's front of mind that, oh, hey, I just saw them with that dog in an inspection and now it doesn't have a muzzle. And hopefully sort of sidetracking that compliance or complacency that some owners may get into when nobody's following up for 2 years, so they're kind of fine. I'm not sure time-wise what burden that would be on staff, however. I also had a question about animals that are deemed dangerous in other municipalities. Is there a way that follows them into our municipality so that they can, or we can ensure public safety? Or when owners move out of our municipality, how do we ensure that designation follows them into the next?
Yeah, Ms. Scott? I know I read it on how dangerous dog can be removed off the dog. I mean, we're using a dog now, because I guess it could be anything. It could be a cat becomes a dangerous cat. How it gets removed from the DTR. But is there anything that's in the mechanism? I mean, it'd be neat to, something pretty good discussion, because I think it would be tough for a municipality, sheriff from municipality, not knowing where somebody moves. But do we know if there's something out there where if a dangerous dog was moving into our community from another community that would be advised? And then same from our side, if the animal was being moved from our municipality going to a different municipality?
I'm just quickly trying to read through our bylaw to see if that's in there, and so I will ask Director Curry to provide some additional information here too. But I know I have definitely read in other bylaws that if the owner of a dangerous dog does rehome it, that they have a duty to notify wherever it has been rehomed to. I've also seen where if an animal has been designated a dangerous dog, that they have to be chipped, and that chip stays with it as well. But I'm just quickly trying to read through our bylaw to see if any of those things are in there. And so Director Curry can probably give you an answer a lot quicker than I can.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. So that's the truth of any animal that is being rehomed. If it has a license, there's actually a requirement of the owner to inform the district that it's been rehomed within the municipality. Now, speaking outside of our municipality, we are not the only municipality in the province that is dealing with dangerous dogs. So much so that the Local Government and Compliance and Enforcement Association actually has developed and has started to implement a dangerous dog registry for the entire province. So this was done as a pilot project. It's now starting to get some traction so that we can actually upload pictures, we can upload information. If we do have chipped information, as Ms. Scott was saying, we can have that in there, tattoos, et cetera, identifying marks into this registry. To my knowledge, it has not taken off widespread. Not every community actually belongs to the LGCEA. However, we do. Used to be called LIBOA, and then they changed the name, and now I'm all screwed up with it. So we do belong to this association and have been looking at developing this and how to put this into our own administrative procedures.
Okay, follow up?
Thank you. That's really good information that we're at least starting that work of that designation following animals into other communities, or us being able to hopefully extract that information should we need it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Scott, just a couple of things that Councillor Noxana had mentioned that we didn't get a chance to get some maybe answers on. One would be mandating insurance on dangerous animal within the policy. What does that look like? Is that something we can do?
That is something you can do, and that is something that some other municipalities have included in their bylaws. As an example, I'm just reading, this is I've taken just some kind of bits and pieces out of some other municipalities' animal control bylaws. And so when it comes to insurance, it's specifically, this bylaw specifically, let me find it, says, written confirmation. So when in order to obtain a license for a dangerous dog, the owner of the dangerous dog shall supply the following documentation to the municipality, which includes the completion of the dog license application, written confirmation from a licensed veterinarian that the dog has been neutered or spayed, written confirmation from a humane animal trainer approved by the municipality that the services of such trainer have been retained for the purpose of providing behavioral remediation for the dog, written confirmation that the owner has obtained a policy of liability insurance specifically covering any damages for injuries caused by the dog in an amount of not less than $500,000 and covering the 12-month period during which the licensing is sought, and written confirmation that the dog has permanent identification with the permanent identification information outlined on the application, and that the payment of the dangerous dog license fee be paid.
Thank you. Councillor Noxana just kind of mentioned you might want to get some motions prepared. The other one that was circled back by Councillor Noxana, just to get some clarity from staff, if I may, and that was looking at maybe mandating more inspections on a more regular basis of a dangerous pet by staff. Is that something we could put in this policy?
In the bylaw or in a policy?
Or, sorry, in the bylaw.
I would think that would be more of a policy thing than a bylaw thing. But again, because I'm not the department that is going to be enforcing that, again, I think that's a question maybe for Director Curry to provide an answer for.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. We do have other bylaws that mandate inspections. However, I do see Ms. Scott's point about putting it into policy. I think it's a bit, I think it could probably go either way. I think it would have more ability to vary on the administrative requirements and what we will do would be in policy versus in bylaw. I think if we were saying if it was a bylaw, this is what the service that we would, or this is the minimum that we would accept under the bylaw, and we would have to hold ourselves to it. We'd have no, what happens if we had a bylaw officer all of a sudden quit, right? So then we'd have that kind of ironclad. I think it stays more in policy.
Okay, no, and I appreciate it. I mean, and I understand it from staff side in regards to a policy, and I'd be fine with that if that's what council so decides. The only thing is I'd like to see the policy number mentioned within this dangerous animal. And I'm fine with the policy. And I mean, I don't want to stipulate on how many months or something like this, and I'll be honest, I think the motions we make today is sending staff back to bring it back forward with getting us the information, not just making the changes ad hoc. I think we need to make sure that we get the right opportunity for staff to research it again. Like Ms. Scott read from somebody else's thing, and that's great, bring that information forward, and if that's what council wants to add into this bylaw, then we do. I think Councillor Noxana, I believe that's a couple that you were looking for answers for that I wrote down? Okay. I got myself, and then Councillor Hoffman, then Councillor Julik. I guess my comments would be, and I understand it from staff, and it was mentioned by staff, the grace period of January to January 31st for relicensing your pet. To me, I think when it comes to dangerous dog or dangerous animal, I mean, I think we use dog because that's what we're talking about, but really and truly, sounds like we could have more than just dogs that could become dangerous, whether it's cats or I believe councilors mentioned other animals. My thing is that there should be no grace period for anything that has been deemed dangerous by bylaw. There should be a zero grace period. If licenses are due, I mean, I guess we got to be fair that if our office isn't open because it's the holiday, that, you know, whatever, that grace period is minimized from 30 days to a week or whatever it may be, because I think it's very, very important to make sure we try to keep everybody safe within the community. And, you know, I appreciate staff's comments that we're not the only municipality dealing with dangerous dogs. I think it's come to light many times already, and I believe that's why the staff has worked so hard on working on this updated bylaw, is in regards to some of the attacks we've had within the community. And staff had brought things forward, and knowing that we just looked at it and approved it in 2024, I think this is an opportunity just to make sure that we have the wording right. One of the councillors already mentioned about the word "may." There's quite a few spots where it says "may," and maybe we can get an understanding from staff on why we would use the word "may" instead of "musts," or something more concrete. Maybe "may" is concrete enough, but I noticed it in a few spots where, you know, Councillor Julik mentioned it in regards to 27, that we may do this. There's other places that it says we may do this, may require that. I'm just curious on why we're using the word "may." Ms. Scott.
And that I can't provide an answer for because I was not here when council deliberated this bylaw. So again, I'll ask Director Coady to answer that question.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Without having to review the entire bylaw in complete, just to identify the context for where we have mays. And the general purpose of may is to dealing with what the district will do as an administrative procedure. So in that same section, we're talking about the district may issue the owner of written notice. That doesn't mean that we have to. So in the case of that, we can actually designate somebody as a dangerous dog without giving them written notice. Would we ever come to that? Possibly not, but it is the requirement on the district. Where we have shall is another one that is not great. It's either must, really, is the clearest one, as what the expectation is of the owner or the individual of what the bylaw is actually, the direction that we're giving for that bylaw. So that's kind of the general principle. When we're saying must, we expect, that's the expectation from the district on a resident, so to speak. We're not holding ourselves to that same, and I'm not sure how that works in the same context in there. That's just a very loose synopsis of it without going through the entire bylaw.
Okay, thank you for that. I got Councillor Hoffman, then Councillor Julik.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to put out there, since I see somebody writing a motion, that she consider adding high risk as well as to whatever motion that she may be considering. I don't know if I haven't heard us talk about it, so just looking at what the definition of high risk is, we may want to consider that for insurance purposes. Like guess I'm going to start beating around the bush. Can we legally put in a bylaw that we are either going to seize a dog based on violation of, say, 32, where you catch them in the act of not having a muzzle, for example? And are we prepared to go that far? Because I think that's really what we're talking about here is safety of the public. I get that if the dog is a current menace and is at large and is at risk, that you can grab the dog. But do we want to, in this policy, say that a violation of what is required, we have the list of signage, we have how you transfer between, we have what sort of restraint you have to have on the dog in your yard, we have all that. Like, it is a pretty comprehensive expectation list, but the thing that we keep beating around is what's the consequences if you don't? And do we say we seize? Do we say we destroy if seized? Like, how far do we really want to go here? And I don't think we really touched on that. I don't have an answer. I'm not sure how far I want to go, but I think that ends up being the meat. There's nothing here in a consequence for violation. I think that's the meat that we're sort of talking about. So I'm going to leave it at that because I don't have a complete answer. I wasn't reading it in that way when I was going over it. I'll also say that with the exception of number 27, the two mays in here are the owner of the dangerous dog may deliver the dog to the district for immediate surrender and destruction. So in other words, owner's choice, inconsistent with what staff was describing. And district may waive the annual destruction fee. Those are the only other two mays, except for number 27, which I would agree should be changed. I don't think an oral warning is sufficient in this case when you have this many consequences. That if that's the suggestion, that we go with that. But I guess I'm hoping for something in before 37 and 38 on what are we going to do as a district if there's violations of these well-prepared and reasonable restrictions on a dangerous dog. Thank you.
Okay, and just make a comment, I wasn't just talking about one section with the wording may. It's throughout the whole bylaw. Yeah, just, I know we're trying to focus on one, but this is an opportunity to relook at the whole bylaw, not that it's, I think staff did a great job, so I definitely want to make sure staff understands that. We received the bylaw in front of council, we thought we, covered everything, and I think we're seeing that maybe there's some things that we could change. And I think that happens as you work through that process. And I know, Councillor Hoffman, you mentioned do we add this or do we, we can get information from staff, but it's gonna have to be motions made by council to give staff the direction to go and look at, if they receive a phone call or a complaint or the dangerous animal is seen without whatever precautions been put in place by bylaw, that where you're seizing the animal, that's going to have to be council giving that direction to staff to go look at it. I can get clarification from the CAO, but that's what they're looking for is what we want to see out of it. But I just want clarity from Ms. Scott.
I think what staff needs is, because right now the consequences are fines. So if council wants the consequences to be more strict, then that is direction we would need from council, yes.
Okay. Follow up, Councillor Hoffman.
Sorry, I was asking fellow council on that question. That was what I was trying to say, that we've gone back and forth. We've had do we want to say we're doing something more than fines? And if we do, then this is the place to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm open to it, but I don't know if I want it, and that's why I want to hear from council.
Yeah. My apologies. Councillor Julik and then Councillor Clickash.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of on the same page about getting tougher. I'm not sure, because I've thought myself about making motions, I feel like if staff is capturing all this, I'd rather see staff come back with some of the things that we've talked about. I understand some of the benefit of debating it. I think we could be here a while though. A couple of things. I want the onus to be on the owner. I don't want the district to have to be responsible for, I don't have a problem with the tracking and stuff, but I think the onus needs to be on the owner for all the other things. Like if we have a pamphlet that says, okay, you have a dangerous dog now, I'm okay with that. I think that it would be up to the departments, obviously, but I think that there is some merit in having the person selling the dog tags to have some information. I know Director Curry talked about having some information there. I'm just hoping that that definitely happens so that when they do come in, there's no question as to whether or not this dog needs to have a special license. I think in regards to if somebody moves to our community, I think when a person registers their dog, there should be a question on that form that says, has your dog been ever designated as a dangerous dog before? And then we have that information. And if they lie on it, then that's something you can come back at them on. I also would like to see possibly a fees and charges bylaw, or the fees or charges specific to this policy, the dangerous animal section, be included. The only thing I can find on our fees and charges bylaw is the cost of a tag. When I hear that there was $3,000 in fines handed out, I don't know where a person would be able to determine that those things would be for that. And finally, on the policy, so far as going and looking at the animal and stuff, I agree that maybe that can be in a policy. I definitely take direction on that. And I understand the concerns around if we do or do not have a bylaw officer at the time. I think that this is one of those things we just make sure is done. I think this is one of the places where we as council give direction that there is no give on this outside of a 7 or 14-day period. I understand that that's a staff concern, but the buck stops with council in the end. If a child was killed or scarred or anything like that. So I think that we as council need to make some really strong, like Councillor Prakash has said, something that's got real consequence to it, and that maybe somebody with a dangerous dog wants to double think what they're doing, but at least we are making sure we follow up by making sure they have the signs, they have the tags, they are following the bylaw, that we follow up every 2 or 3 months with them just to go over it with them again. I think that that's important, and I'm okay to, same as we said, no zero tolerance on cats and dogs running around. I think we need to do that with this one as well.
Thank you. Ms. Scott, just a couple things from that. Are you capturing all this and then just bring this back, or do you prefer motions?
Motions, please.
Thank you. And the other thing is Councillor Duke was asking about where she finds this. Is it not in under our fees and charges bylaws? All the fines are there.
I believe it is. I'm currently trying to bring it up. It's slow, but I believe it is. And again, Director Curry can probably corroborate that.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. So the fees for licenses are contained within the fees and charges bylaw. You will find fines in our municipal ticket information bylaw. It's called an MTI bylaw. You'll find them for every fine that the district levies out. It's a consolidated bylaw.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Prakash and then Councillor Noxana.
Just reading through this, I couldn't see anything in regard to breeders and any restrictions on dogs being bred in town.
Yeah.
Might have missed it, but
I know, I don't like you did. Ms. Scott?
The question is,
Anything in regards to the breeders, in regards to our animal bylaw? Animal Responsibility Bylaw. There's commercial kennels and such,
yeah, there's kennels, but I didn't see anything.
but I don't think it has anything in regards to breeders. I know that when people do end up with a, I'm not gonna say they're a breeder, but they have a house pet that gets, that has puppies or kittens, they have, I guess, a leeway that they don't have to license all their puppies or whatever, until they're a certain age and give them away, but I'm not sure how is it a normal thing to add to an animal responsibility bylaw? Would be breeders within here?
I have seen that in other bylaws, and I'm just having a quick look too, and just because I'm scrolling it may take me longer. Director Curry can probably provide some additional information.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Currently, our bylaw does not have a referenced section for breeders, but as the mayor did say, we do have the ability to, we have the ability to mandate, or sorry, the amount of animals that are in any household for companion animals is limited in the bylaw, and to a certain age as well. So once they reach that age, then we would enforce through that. So if they kept, let's say, 6 dogs for any longer than 6 months, right, we would go back and we can have that conversation with them under the bylaw for the more than the allotted amount of companion animals.
Follow up?
I don't know if we have to go this far, but I was just thinking that,
Not to interrupt you, just 1 second, Councilor Coady. If you need to leave, I guess I can't say that, but if there is an issue that the director would have to leave the meeting, you're good? Okay, sorry. I just heard his pager go off, so I just want to make sure it was good. Go ahead, Councilor Clickash.
what I was thinking of is, in the breeder section is more or less people that are breeding dogs that aren't, they're fighting dogs and stuff like that. We don't have anything like that in there either. Somebody could come into town, just start it up and have it in their backyard and we wouldn't know about it.
I think listening to Ms. Scott, it's probably something we can add, even from staff side. I think it's just something we put a motion on the floor that we want some information on how we add that.
Yeah,
Are you prepared to make a motion?
that we look into how we can add information on and restrictions on breeding animals, specifically dogs and cats in town.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion on the motion, Councillor Knox, Councillor Julik? Nope, okay,
Different motion, sorry.
okay. Any questions on the motion on the floor? Staff captured that, Ms. Scott? Okay, call the question, all in favor? Carried. Anything else, Councillor Clickash?
No, that's good, thanks.
Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. I'm going to do mine one at a time, just so we can
Yep.
debate them one at a time. I would like to make a motion that we include mandatory owner-funded insurance in our Dangerous Dog Act.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Norbury. Discussion. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Krakowka. I fully support it. I think it's a great idea. I mean, we've seen exactly how this plays out in the role of the victim, and as well as the unintended consequence of the owner. You know, I know that animal surgeries cost more than human surgeries, right? A friend of mine had to get their dog knee surgery done. It was thousands of dollars more than their own. So I can only imagine the victim of an attack having to pay this on their own causes great hardship on them, and I highly doubt any owner of a dog would expect that to happen, right? Like, no one expects these things to happen. It's their loved animal. They don't expect it to happen, but at the same time, it should be in place. Thanks.
I guess my only comment here before I go to Councillor Noxana would be if we thought of maybe adding high risk to the same motion. The reason I asked that, I mean, at this point, it's not a dangerous dog, but it's a high risk dog, and it talks about exactly aggressively pursued or threatened a person or animal while running at large. Well, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden a high risk doesn't become a dangerous dog in a matter of seconds. To me, it's the same thing can happen there. We know we have a high risk. It hasn't been upgraded to a dangerous yet because it hasn't done the attack. But while it's a high risk, it could do the attack. Now it becomes dangerous. Now they have to have it. This might be something, I believe Councillor Hoff kind of mentioned it earlier. This might be the opportunity that we add it to both so that we cover if that high risk animal ever becomes a dangerous. That'd be my comment, Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. I left this fairly broad, whether it goes with high risk or dangerous dog. I really have no strong opinion. I didn't specify the amount or when we want to see this or what the length of the insurance policy is, because I'd really like us to be sure that this is enforceable when it goes into our policy. And I know Ms. Scott had a really good blurb out of another policy or another bylaw she read us, and I want to ensure that we can capture that in our policy. So that's why it's sort of a little bit ambiguous in the motion.
Yeah, and I think, staff got the point. This is what we're looking for, to give us some different information on it. Councillor Clickash, then Councillor Hoffman.
Yes, Your Honor. I just was thinking that I have this type of insurance on my house and policy. It's a risk type insurance that if a dog bit somebody, or I don't even have a dog anymore, but that's what it's for. But it's not a terrific amount of money. I think it's about $4,000 or something, maximum, so. It would have to be upgraded or whatever, but you can get it on your insurance policy.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mayor. I was actually going to follow up with another motion in case this, but I didn't want to hurt this one, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be an issue. So I do move to amend the motion to include high-risk dogs as well.
Okay, seconder on the amendment. Councillor Noxana. Discussion on the amendment. Councillor Jilek, is it on? Okay, just want to make sure I don't miss you. Okay, call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Carried. Okay, any more discussion on the amended motion? Councillor Jilek? No?
Not on the amended.
Sorry. No, this is the amended motion now.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, like, I thought that the blurb that Ms. Scott had kind of encompassed that all, and I wondered if that would save a few motions. I appreciate keeping it broad for the amount. I also think that we need to be conscious that it needs to be dangerous animals. I think that this can't just be dangerous dogs. I understand that they're the higher, statistically, they're gonna be the thing. But to go through and have any, like, to not have a dangerous animal for all forms of animals, I think, what if it was a horse? That got out of the stables, something like that. So I think, I'd like to see that, and I don't know that that needs to change this motion. I just think it's something if staff keeps that in mind. Ms. Scott may have a different thought to that, and I'm happy to make a motion. It's just, I would like to see the consideration to be all animals, and the rest of Ms. Scott's other policy that she took from another district or town added, like that in, it was very comprehensive.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, just to maybe put some inlay in it, I think we're talking about the dangerous dogs because that's what's within our Animal Responsibility Bylaw today. There's no dangerous animal in here. It talks about dangerous dogs. I just want to get clarification from staff. That's why we're not, like, I mean, I understand where we're coming from. I said the same thing, that dangerous animals, but we actually don't have a paragraph within our Animal Responsibility Bylaw that says dangerous animals. It only classified as dangerous dogs or high-risk dogs. It totally leaves cats out and hens. So, but I just want
And
clarification.
horses.
Ms. Scott?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so that's why. And then I do believe the councillor Noxana had already mentioned the reason she left it broad was so staff has the opportunity to investigate what that insurance amount would look like and how to fit it in. I understand that Ms. Scott did read from another community. It doesn't mean that they won't use that as an example, but I think that's why Councillor Noxana had just put it on there as open so staff has a bit of room to make sure that we capture it all. Correct? Yeah. Okay, any more discussion on the amended motion? Call the question, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Noxana.
Thank you. I would like to motion that in our dangerous dog section, we include owner-funded mandatory tattoos or computer identifying marks. But it's not just an identifying mark. I don't know how you say that. I left a blank line because I don't know how to say that.
Yeah, I don't, like, especially on a tattoo, normally they're on the ears and stuff, so, like, I know right now the municipality is doing tags, bigger than a normal tag. But Ms. Scott, just before we get this motion second,
Can I say what I want?
yeah, say what you want, and then we can maybe figure it out from there.
So I would like dangerous dogs to have a specific identifying tattoo or computer chip. So it could just be the registration that the vet has done, be supplied to the district, so it can be put in this database that Mr. Curry had provided us with. But I don't know what you call those. And I don't want us to have to pay to tattoo animals. I want the owner to have to pay to have their dog registered with a vet, perhaps, to have a chip or a tattoo. I don't care which one.
Ms. Scott, can we just get a little bit of help from staff? Because I don't remember what it was called either as staff went through it.
Yeah, permanent identification.
Okay.
Okay, if you just want to read that out so staff can capture that, please, Councillor Knox.
I'm motioning to include owner-funded permanent identification on any dangerous dog be provided to the District of Tumbler Ridge, so we are able to upload it in a provincial database.
Okay, seconder,
I have a follow-up.
Councillor Clickash. Discussion, Councillor Noxana.
I'm specifically doing this only for dangerous dogs, not high-risk dogs, because I feel like high-risk dogs could be potentially trained out of some of this behavior, whereas dangerous dogs, we've given them the designation. They've had all the chances. It's time for us to ensure public safety at this point.
Thank you. Any other discussion in regards to the motion on the floor? Call the question, all in favor? Motion carries. Councillor Noxana.
I would like to make a motion that we include mandatory behavior training in our dangerous dog and high-risk dog bylaw.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Dussault. Discussion, Councillor Noxana.
I got nothing.
Okay. Councillor Hoffman.
I don't have a problem with it in concept, but I think we need be more specific, like what level of training or certification or what it is. Just, and I guess that's what you're asking for, rather broad and get it back.
Councillor Noxana.
Exactly. I'd like to leave it broad so that we can get it right in our policy. I recognize that where we are in Tumbler Ridge, we don't have certified trainers here, but perhaps there is some in the region that would be suitable, or a certain level or a certain standard that could be included. And I don't have that information to put in my motion.
Okay, just so everybody knows, this is not a policy that we're including this in. This is actually a bylaw. There's a difference. Just want to make sure we know that because we've used policy a couple times. My only comments there would be if we're going to add this to the bylaw, that we need to make sure it's something that's available to the pet owner. We can put what we want in the bylaw, but if that is not available at a local area, and I'm not just talking like in the north, but it may not be available anywhere in this. So I'd like to see some research done that first to make sure that's actually available, whether that's, I mean, I would have to assume Vancouver or Cam, I got to assume that it would be available, but maybe it's not. I think we got to make sure, and I'm not sure where Ms. Scott was reading that part of the bylaw from somebody else's municipality, but to me, if we're going to add it, we got to make sure it's available for the person that does end up with a classification as a dangerous dog would be my only thing, just to make sure that we have an idea where some of these are located to make sure it makes sense to put in the bylaw. Councillor Noxana?
Thank you. Should we leave this as a motion that we would like it looked into instead of included in the bylaw?
I think all the motions you made, staff's going to be looking into anyways.
Yeah, because we're not.
Nope, I think it's, no, exactly. No, I think it's great to have it on. That's why I just made those comments. Staffs capture those things like that and make sure that, not only do they look at how that looks in our bylaw, we need to make sure it's available, right? But the other ones, no, I think, like your insurance one, they're going to go and have a look at all that and bring it back. So no, I think it's a great time to add it. Any other discussion? Call the question on the motion. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in regards to training, there is a lady out of Dawson that does train high-risk dogs and dangerous dogs. So she's someone who could be looked at, and she would come to Tumbler.
Thank you. Okay, call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. I have one motion to put on the floor before, Councillor, go ahead, Councillor Norberry. And I got Councillor Julik after.
We're throwing out motions, so here we go. That staff prepare an addition to the Animal Responsibility Bylaw that adds a provision for the seizure of a dangerous animal that has caused harm to an animal or human.
Seconder, Councillor Clickash. Discussion, Councillor Norberry.
Thank you, Mayor Krakowka. I left this intentionally vague because I think there's a little bit more that goes into, what would trigger this seizure. I'm not looking for, from understand, there's something called a one bite law in BC. I'm not looking for the district to get involved in seizing animals except in extreme cases that are a danger to the public. So I want to leave this broad so that staff can investigate it, so we're not limiting them on what they're, on what they're going to be bringing back. But yeah, I really want this to be in last case scenarios.
Thank you. Councillor Noxana?
Thank you. I really like this motion. I think it gives us an opportunity to intervene when a dangerous dog designation has been made and an owner is willfully ignoring the rules to keep that dog in our municipality. It makes sense to have something here to follow up through.
Yep, I agree. Any other questions, comments on the motion? Okay, gonna call the question. All in favor? Carried. You're good. Councillor Julik?
I would like to make a motion that we explore, add, or adjust this bylaw, specifically 7 and 8, to change to dangerous animals and high-risk animals versus dogs. I'm okay if there's another section added to just copy and paste. But I'd like to have a motion to have an option of dangerous animals, high-risk animals within the bylaw.
So can you just read your motion out again so I'm clear, please?
Motion to add or possibly adjust section 7 and 8 to read high-risk animals or dangerous animals rather than just dogs.
I think maybe we give staff direction to add another one. I don't think we want to get rid of my opinion, before I second it, just because it hasn't been seconded, so you can change your motion. To me, we want to
Yeah.
keep that it's isolated to high-risk dogs, dangerous dogs, here we go. But it doesn't hurt to have high-risk or dangerous animals added as a different line. Like, we need to I think that's why staff put it in there, and I'll go to Ms. Scott before you read your motion, but my understanding is when this was something that staff captured as they redid this bylaw to make sure we had it isolated, because we have more dog concerns when it comes to whether it's high risk or dangerous. Doesn't mean that we can't add something that in general, animal dangerous or animal high risk, but I think that's why. But Ms. Scott?
Yeah, again, because I wasn't here when council debated this bylaw to begin with, so I'll ask Director Curry to provide some additional information there.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, to Councillor Julik's point, the previous iteration of this bylaw did not have nuisance animal or high risk. We changed those to add those designations. We also had to add in definitions for each one of those. So for high-risk dog, there is under the definitions a very set criteria of what makes that dog a dangerous dog or a high-risk dog. If we're going to say something for a dangerous animal or a high-risk animal, we're going to have to look seriously at what makes that animal in a general term, because we're using the word animal generally. We'd have to also make that a general level of a threshold of what makes that high risk versus what makes that dangerous. And I think that's where we might actually stumble, because if we're talking about a dangerous hen, or are we talking about a dangerous horse, right? If we say to cause harm, what would be one thing, or to threaten to cause harm. So there's very different
Fair.
kind of definitions of what those look like. I think I can see it more of a stretch for cats because we have a significant amount in the amount of damage, and speaking firsthand of the amount of damage a cat can do from a feral cat point of view. Yeah, I think that would be one that we could take back and look at, but I don't know where we would actually end up in a bylaw sense with that.
Okay, thank you. Follow up, Councillor Julik?
Yeah, I'm fine to have, make a motion to explore adding dangerous and high-risk animals to the bylaw.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Norbury. Discussion? Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. As much as I enjoy the thought of a dangerous chicken, I think that I hope staff takes it as a rather broad thing. I hear staff's points, but I'm looking at the ungulates. Just their size alone may be enough for defining them as potentially dangerous or higher risk. Horses and donkeys. I don't know if there's snakes are in town or not, but a 3-meter bow could be a risk to a child or another animal very, very easily. So I would encourage that they take it as broad as they need to cover these, but I do think this, we're doing this anyways. It makes sense to include these sorts of things. And just looking at Schedule J, if anybody is wondering where I'm getting this from, they have a complete list of what's allowed and what's not allowed. But an iguana that's a meter long, I mean, there's claws, there's harm that can be done. So however, I encourage you to be as broad as you need to be to cover these. I think this is a good opportunity to add this. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Julik?
I just have another motion, so I'll just
Okay.
keep my hand up so you remember.
Thanks. Yeah, that'd be my comments, and I think staff captured that, and even Councillor Julik changing that motion. That's why we didn't second it. I think it's great to have that, let's explore it and see what can come back. I think it's a great opportunity that maybe we've seen some things that have come to light in regards to the new Animal Responsibility Bylaw that we approved. Not that I think it's wrong. I think, like I said, staff worked hard on it, and now we see a few changes, so I appreciate the work. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Julik?
I'd like to make a motion that staff develop a policy to outline expectations of staff's responsibilities once an animal has been deemed dangerous.
Okay, seconder? I'll second that. Ms. Scott, I just want to make sure it's clear enough, because to me it seems pretty vague, and just want to make sure it's clear enough from staff side what we're looking for there. I seconded it because I know where Councillor Juk is going for. It's probably something that I brought up earlier in regards to inspections and such. I just want to make sure it's clear for staff. Just don't want to go down the tunnel that we thought you weren't going to.
So again, I will ask Director Curry, because he's the one that's going to be, developing this policy for the most part, if he has enough direction or clarification there.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Yes, I'm fairly clear on council's expectations and what you'd like for that policy.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor Julik? Okay. Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Somewhat surprisingly, I'm actually against this motion. I'm comfortable with staff's assessments and spending of their resources on what I've heard to this point. I think that this is more appropriate in a budgetary question if we've got to expand bylaw or add an animal control officer or something of that nature. But if we're really going to say I want bi-monthly inspections or semi-annual inspections, I think we have to designate funds that we want this sort of thing. And I don't want staff to spend the time on a policy that I'm not prepared to pay for. So that's why I'm not prepared to ask staff for that report at this time.
Yep, thank you for that. And just make a comment. I think, staff is already doing something. I think, to me, I talked about it. I got a reply back from staff, happy with what they said, and, especially when I talked about whether we add it to the bylaw and then been explaining about the policy instead. To me, I think when it's Councillor Julik put this out, I think we're just looking to see what actually happens. I mean, we've had some, to me, residents come forward in regards to what's been going on. There's been some complaints. There's been follow-up for sure by bylaw. I think we're just asking, how does that procedure work? I mean, I heard from staff, admin's been doing this, but it's great to be able to know that this is what we do, because I'm not sure how many people received an email from some of these incidents. But honestly, I guess I could bug RCA and say, I need all this information because this lady wants to meet with me and I need to answer them. Or I hear it in the policy comes forward and this is what staff has already been doing. And now I know what's expected and how I can answer it. So I think it's good information to have. I'm not looking for, in my opinion, the motion doesn't look like staff's going to go out and reinvent something that they're already doing. They're already doing it. We're just going to see what that looks like. And to me, staff already talked about automatically now sending out notices for animal tags, because there was cats mentioned and such. That's something this municipality never ever did. Never ever did. So it's something that they've worked through the process to be able to do that now that they're gonna start doing it. Is there gonna be hiccups along the way for that? Probably. That's okay. We learn from them. And I think this is the same motion that Councillor Duke has put on the floor, is it gives us something from the background. It's not, is there gonna be hiccups on it? Probably, but at least we know what we all seek. If we don't like that, you know, no disrespect staff, but this is how we do it. Well, obviously, if we wanna add more to it, we gotta pay for that. It's a service. Put some money in the pot if that's what you want as council. But we don't even know what it is. And, you know, maybe having it in front of us, we're happy with what's been put forward. Councillor Gillick?
Yeah, my, part of this for me is about succession as well. Like, so if it's written down, like we have other policies written down, then people know what's next. If Director Curry's out of town, then we know there's a policy there that says these are the things that have to be followed. The other part that I like about it is then it's detailed. So when there is an attack, if there is an attack, then it's detailed that this dog has had this tag, this dog was checked on this time, and this time. The owner is aware, and I think these are the pieces that would help possibly if or when there was something that had to go farther, because we'll know that we have done our due diligence. So for me, that's why it's important to have something along these lines, and I'm confident that Mr. Curry knows where we're looking for this.
Thank you. Okay, gonna call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Hoffman's opposed. Motion carries. Okay, anything else in regards to Animal Responsibility Bylaw? Councillor Norberg.
Thank you, Mayor Krakowka. I don't have a motion, just another discussion topic, and maybe this could be answered by staff, but, you know, when it comes to infractions that the community has reported on, is there a policy, do we add it to this bylaw? How would we have a notification back to those complainants that their issue has been dealt with? That's something that's been brought up to me. I'm not too sure where to bring it up. But they brought it up in regards to animal complaints and, you know, loss of faith in the system. And maybe if we just tell them, like, you know, something's been done, we can continue that assistance from the public.
Ms. Scott?
Again, I don't think that's something to add to the bylaw, but I'm sure Director Curry can provide information about how complaints are followed up on.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mayor and Council, to Councilor Norbury's point about how we disseminate information back to complainants. So this is something that does happen. I can't guarantee that it happens in every single instance. There is a fine line when it comes to an individual's privacy and what information that we can and cannot disseminate. Now, in most cases, we can at least have the conversation with the individual, say, yes, we have taken it under advisement, we've investigated it, and we're monitoring it, or we've dealt with it, or in some cases, we might actually say we've fined them for X, Y, and Z, right? Or we fined them, probably not for X, Y, and Z, to get specific. One thing that we do find, though, is we have individuals that will reach out to us through social media. And then for us to go back through that, it's very time consuming. We're not quite often out in the field for us to kind of recapture that. Does it get lost sometimes? Possibly, right? We will try to, and we endeavor, I should say, to follow up with these individuals when they make complaints for animal responsibility bylaws and other bylaws as well, as best we can.
Thank you. Follow up?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Krakowka. I think that's fair enough. I mean, you know, ultimately, I'd rather the issue be addressed versus communication back. Would be nice to have that. You know, I mean, when we discuss our bylaw, you know, I think like our bylaw, we could have the perfect bylaw that handles every single situation, but, you know, without that enforcement of the bylaw, which we need community participation, you know, the bylaw loses its ability to enact what it's supposed to do, and that's, you know, governance of how people conduct themselves in our community, right? So I can appreciate what Chief Curry has to say, you know, but yeah, we just need to make sure that we still maintain trust in the system, right? So thanks.
Yep, thank you. Okay, anything else from council regards to Animal Responsibility Bylaw? Okay, I have a motion. The staff look into high-risk and dangerous dog, no grace period for license renewal. Take a seconder. Councillor Dussault, discussion. The reason I asked for it looked into, because I mean, I can't say zero grace period, because we know that sometimes it falls on our holidays in regards to that. Depends on what time, it would, you know, what day January 1st is and such for staff. But to me, I don't think we should be giving 31 days or 30 days or whatever it may be for dangerous dog or high-risk dog at this point. And I understand, and I love hearing that staff is already looking at doing the automatic notifications for renewals. I think that's great. I appreciate hearing that tonight. Was unaware that was something that was going to be implemented, so I think that's great. But if we can look at this and just, you know, maybe it's not doable, but I'd just like to hear back from staff. That's why I put it on the floor. Any other discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. Okay, anything else in regards to Animal Responsibility Bylaw? Ms. Scott? I know you read it. You're new here, you didn't get to implement it the first time. Like, I know you, I mean, I know you'll connect with staff, but I'm just saying, do you see anything that we're, pulse on it?
Not right now, no.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, schedule of meetings. Be straightforward, send an email out to council today to explain why I had it added to the PMP, because normally we do not have schedule of meetings in PMP. I put it out there in regards to look at moving the November 18th meeting to November 26th. There's just things that have come up. If it can't be moved or council doesn't want to move it, that's fine. But there's things that have come up, and we're just looking at moving that meeting by 1 week and 1 day if it works for council. What's council's opinion? Okay, I'll put a motion on the floor that councils the November 18th regular meeting of council, and that the regular council meeting be moved to November 26th at 5 p.m. Seconder, Councillor Noxana. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, anything else with scheduling meetings from council? Staff?
Yes, I would just like to remind everybody again that tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Visitor Information Center is the kickoff for the Economic Development Strategy with council and senior staff.
Thanks. And just remember, December 6th is the district Christmas party put on by the mayor and council. Okay. Take adjournment. Councillor Noxana?
That the November 12th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, Councillor Dussault. All in favor? Carried.